my screen share. So I'm going to introduce myself in a little bit, but I do want to first say I'm still on my journey to self-care. I don't have this all figured out. I don't have it perfected at all. But one of the things I've noticed is I've started to kind of shift the way I view it, the way I talk about it, even with my clients. So that's what I kind of want to share today and walk us through an intervention that I use with a lot of my clients and that I use with myself. So I want to start with this picture right here. So this is a therapist who's been practicing for 8 years, has a thriving group practice, sees about 20 clients a week, supervises two of her therapists at the group practice. She's been able to figure out how to organize her schedule, when she should schedule clients, when she should take time for herself. She's found herself to be able to go to the gym, work out, 4 days a week, take time to spend time with her friends and her family and meal prep. And she's able to kind of have weekends off where she's able to put her computer down and not be doing case notes on the weekend or trying to figure out treatment plans. So I want to start with this question, and we're going to be using the chat feature a lot. So I'm going to ask you guys all to use the chat feature for this question. So what words would you use to describe this person's relationship with self-care, this therapist that's in this picture, with all the things that I just told you? What words would you use to describe their relationship with self-care? You can just use the chat feature to answer. Okay, we have Melanie, you said effective. Okay, so we have the effective word. Okay, Deborah, healthy. Okay, we got healthy coming up for some people. What other words would you use to describe this therapist relationship with self-care? Balance, okay. Amazing. Engaged, responsible, well-balanced, caring, okay. Responsive. Self-care is definitely a priority. Connected. Okay, we're getting some good. Relaxed, firm boundaries. Okay, working smarter, not harder. Like it. Well-rounded. Okay, we got balance coming up again. Present and engaged. Positive. Okay, I want to shift. So some of the other things that I've also proactive that when I've asked other therapists to reflect, that I've heard bold, I've heard admirable, great work / life balance, which I know we've been saying. Other therapists have also told me brave, to take the time for themselves. Okay, Holly, you say knows how to address issues calmly. One of the questions I hear a lot whenever I talk about this therapist in this scenario is, how do they do it? How do they figure this out to have this balance? I also have received this comment before. I feel more stressed now talking about this person and how they're able to have this balance between work and life and self-care. We have grace and kindness. I like that. And then I've heard the word wow. So I want to come back to this, and I'm going to change the question. So now if someone told you that you need to engage in a similar level of self-care as this therapist, what thoughts and emotions come up to you? Like, what thoughts and emotions come up for you? Okay. We have, I feel shame, impossible. Okay, we have, yeah, right. Okay, how, challenging, intimidating, shock. There's not enough time. When and how. Okay, we have not happening. Loving it, affirmed. How can I do it? Yeah, that's the question I've seen a lot whenever we talk about this. Overwhelming, challenged. Okay, Sharon, you say try to do it often, but miss the mark. There is no me time. I can relate to that. Yeah, you guys are all kind of echoing things that I've heard other therapists and other mental health professionals say. One of the things that I also have heard is I'm letting people down, that if I take time for myself, and I actually start to be more balanced with work and life, then there's going to be deadlines I'm not meeting, or people that are going to feel upset with me because I'm not getting all the tasks done that they need done. So I'm letting people down. Someone said in the chat, I'm letting myself down. One of the ones I hear a lot, not even just from clients, but from other therapists, that if I take time for myself, if I take time to take care of myself or put myself first, then I am being selfish. That's a phrase I hear a lot, is I am being selfish. I am a disappointment. I've heard that one before too from other therapists, that I'm disappointing myself, I'm disappointing others, I'm not meeting what I should be meeting. And then the one thing I also hear is I can't stop thinking about all the things I have to get done. So when I finally do take time, whether that's going to the gym or going out with friends, I find myself thinking about my to-do list, the ever-evolving to-do list that never goes away. They're constantly thinking about those things that they have to get done. Guilt, I hear guilt that comes up a lot when they try to take time for themselves. They try to put themselves first every once in a while. The I feel more stressed now is a constant one that comes up when I ask both of these questions when I'm talking with other therapists. I need to leave and go somewhere for a week. I hear this one a lot, that if I actually take time to have a more balanced life, the only way for me to get self-care is if I escape for a week. I go on a week vacation, I run away from everything that's happening at my job, and I take a week off. And then when I come back, I'm refreshed, and then I keep going, and then I hit burnout again. It's like, okay, I got to go away for another week. And then the last one is, which I think we have this too, I don't have time to take care of myself, is another one that I've heard. So we're going to come back to all the thoughts that y'all are putting. And I love seeing that y'all are saying you're not alone. We feel the same way. Always looking for escape or not having enough time. We're all kind of in this together. So we're going to come back to these thoughts, but kind of what we're going to be doing today is we're going to explore how our own experiences and beliefs influence how we do self-care, or if we do self-care. We're going to actually do an intervention that I use with clients and on myself, that we're going to evaluate our own current state of self-care. And then you're going to be able to use this not only with yourselves, but with your clients as well. So that's kind of the goal, is that we're going to assess ourselves today and do a little intervention, and then being able to take it and use it with our clients as well. So just a little bit about me. As Eric said at the beginning, you can just call me Lindsey, you don't have to call me Dr. Hawkins. So I'm Lindsey Hawkins. I received my Bachelor of Science in Psychology from Texas A&M University. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was leaving Texas A&M, and I had some really great mentors that pushed me towards marriage and family therapy. So then I went to Abilene Christian University, where I got my master's in marriage and family therapy. And then in between my master's and my PhD, I worked in College Station at Scotty's House, which is a child advocacy center. So I saw a lot of sexual abuse trauma cases during the day. And then I also worked at A&M Christian Counseling Center at night, where I saw private practice clients. And in that year, I had this wild idea that I wanted to go back to school, that I was missing it. And so I went and started applying for PhD programs, and I got into Texas Tech's couple and marriage and family therapy program. So then I moved all the way back across Texas, and I spent 3 years at Texas Tech getting my PhD in couple marriage and family therapy. And then after that, I had another wild idea that I wanted to stay in school. So I thought I wanted to take the academic route. So for the past 2 years, I taught up in Chicago at Northern Illinois University, which is right outside of the Chicago area. I was teaching in their Human Development and Family Science program, where I taught undergrad students and master's students. And I did that for the past 2 years. I just moved back to Houston for a job. So I am the clinical director at Memorial Christian Counseling Center. I've been here for 4 months. I moved here right at the spike of the heat, it's a lot hotter here than it is in the Chicago area. Chicago time during the summer is amazing compared to Texas summers. So I've been here for 4 months. So Memorial Christian Counseling Center, it's a group practice where it's a counseling center where we have 4 therapists on staff. And I specialize in trauma-informed care. We have someone who here is Marley. She works with children. Kuba likes to work with teens. Terry is actually a veteran and works with the military population. And we have someone else who's not pictured who also works with the military population. Those are some of our specialties, but we'll see individuals, couples, and families at the counseling center. So let's talk about kind of all the stuff that we were answering questions to of self-care. So the intervention that I'm going to talk about today is from Virginia Satir. She is also known as the mother of family therapy. And I don't know if anyone's ever watched her therapy videos, but she is very touchy-feely in the way that she used to do therapy. She started in the 1950s when she started doing therapy. And she was known for kind of being up and close and personal with her clients. Her model is, it's called two different things. It's either satir experiential therapy or it's called the human growth process model. And what she is known for is she wants to help her clients raise their self-esteem, raise their self-worth, see their value. And she believes that as the therapist, she's part of that tool that helps them start to have new experiences, new thought processes, and new emotions as they start to raise their self-esteem. Is kind of her big underlying thing for her model. So the other thing that I would like to say about satir that I love and that challenges me is she was a huge believer in congruence, that what we're thinking and we're feeling has to match up with our actions to be congruent. So we're pushing everybody to be the best congruent version of themselves. But the one thing that she, I think challenges me constantly when I use the satir model in therapy is that as the therapist, I can't ask my clients to work on things if I'm not willing to do it for myself. And this is one of the challenges with self-care is I constantly have conversations with my clients about taking care of themselves. But satir would say, if I'm not doing it for myself, then I can't ask my clients to do it. Satir also believe that if your clients are getting stuck, like when it comes to taking care of themselves or doing self-care, then we need to look at, okay, well, is the therapist doing it in their own lives? So she was a big believer in being congruent with what we're saying, what we're asking our clients to do, and also doing it for ourselves is a big part of her therapy. So one of the interventions that we're going to actually do today is satir's wheel of resources. Some of you guys may have heard about this. It's been used for a really, really long time, not just in therapy, but with other things that happen in the world as well. So this activity that we're going to do today is one of my favorite satir interventions, but the whole purpose of this is to assess our self-care, to assess the resources that we have available to us, tap into our resiliency, and to also develop new coping strategies when life does get hard or when we're feeling like we don't have time for ourselves or we're struggling and we're feeling that burnout. So this has actually been used when we think about 9/11, we think about Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Harvey, the most recent, when we think about like the shooting that happened in Uvalde. So this tool, the satir's wheel of resources, actually is a training that they typically do for first responders, mental health professionals, medical teams before they go in, right? Before they go in to start helping people like with 9/11 or hurricanes, those type of things, they ask them to fill out this wheel of resources, right? And I'll go back to it. So they ask them to say, okay, what are your resources in each one of these categories? They ask them to fill it out. And what they're finding is, even though they ask these first responders or the mental health professionals who are helping, even though they ask them to fill out this wheel of resources, they kept seeing time and time and time again that they weren't utilizing it. They kept seeing people getting burnt out as they're helping. They kept people sacrifice, and never taking time for themselves, which led to burnout. And so one of the things they said, well, we're missing the mark. We're asking them to fill out this wheel of resources so that when life gets hard, they can look at and say, what are my resources? What can I do to help when I'm feeling burnt out or I'm struggling? So they started asking the questions of, what are we missing? What are we not getting to where we can get them to utilize this activity? And so one of the things, like we were saying at the very beginning, when I was asking you about your own self-care and the thoughts and the emotions that you're all having, is where they started to go, right? Before we can teach someone to utilize the wheel of resources, this self-care tool, we have to start asking them, where do the thoughts and emotions you have about self-care come from? And that's what I want to ask you guys in the chat today. So when we go back to all the things we were kind of saying at the beginning, right? Not having time, I'm being selfish, I'm letting people down, I feel like I needed to escape, all of those things when we think about self-care, where do those thoughts and emotions you have about self-care come from? So you can put that in the chat. So where do they come from? When you think about the thoughts and emotions you have about self-care, where do they come from? Childhood, upbringing, I came from a culture of hard work, family patterns, my abilities, how my parents took care of themselves, family trauma, experiences, Christian church, put others first instead of you, family and self, family and old core beliefs. Yeah, when I think about like my family and how I grew up, I never remember my parents really taking time for themselves. Even now, right? They constantly are sacrificing, or they're constantly doing things for others. I remember my dad used to have a to-do list for Saturdays. Like he would work Monday through Friday, kill himself all week, and then he would have a to-do list that he had to get done on Saturday. And he would work all day Saturday and barely allow time for him to actually recuperate or get ready for the next week. Okay, we have my mind and heart. If I don't take excellent care of myself, I have no abundance to share with others. So this is one of the questions they started to ask, right? The research was showing that people aren't utilizing the wheel of resources. So what are we missing? So before we can even introduce it with ourselves or with our clients, we have to first ask the questions of, how do we feel about self-care? What are the thoughts and emotions that come up for you when we say the word self-care? And then where do those come from? And how do we start to challenge those thoughts and emotions? The other question they started to ask is, how do I feel about myself, right? How do you view yourself? Do you view yourself as being worth taking the time for? Do you view yourself as someone who shouldn't have time for themselves, right? So they started to ask the question of, how do you view yourself? How do you feel about yourself? And through asking these two questions, they started to see, okay, if we can start to challenge these thoughts, these beliefs, we started to see people actually using the wheel of resources. We started to see people actually tapping into their resiliency and their resources and actually using them when they felt burnt out. But these are the two questions that were missing that we should have been asking before we just hand someone a wheel of resources and say, fill this out and then make sure you utilize it. Is we have to hit on these two questions first. And these are the two questions that I always start with my clients. I like to use the wheel of resources, especially when I have teens who are coming in for depression. I work with a lot of sexual abuse survivors. And so I like to use the wheel of resources as we start therapy and as we start to dive into hard things. These are two of the questions that I like to ask my clients before we even do the wheel of resources is, how do they feel about taking care of themselves? What are the thoughts they have about themselves? And this also hits on Satir's whole thing of, we have to start to build self-esteem and self-worth as we work through these things. So the other thing that I have a lot of clients at the Christian Counseling Center who ask for God to be a part of it. So when we start to actually challenge those thoughts and those beliefs they have about self-care, is one of the tools that I give them is, why don't you go and read scripture this week? And I want you to look at different scriptures that talk about resting, that talk about taking time for yourself, right? Just like do like a whole, like almost like research into what the Bible even says about self-care and taking time for yourself. And some of the verses that we'll talk about that a lot of them bring back is that even Jesus took time for himself. Even Jesus rested. You know, we can look at Luke 5:16. After Jesus heals the man with leprosy, it says that he went to a lonely place to pray. He stepped away from all the miracles he was performing, being overwhelmed with everyone in the towns, and he took time to pray. He took time to go and for himself. I mean, that's one example. If we also look at like Mark 1:35, where he says that Jesus retreated to a solitary place to pray. And those are just two examples. So we talk about that in therapy, about how Jesus took time to pray. And that's just Jesus. There's other people we can look at in the Bible that actually took time for themselves, took time to take care of themselves as they were doing ministry, as they were taking care of others. And I challenge myself with this one a lot. I always have to remind myself when I say I don't have time for self-care, I don't have time to sit down and actually take care of myself, is that I have to remind myself that if the Savior of the world can take time for himself to rest and to pray, then Lindsey Hawkins can also take time. I have to constantly remind myself, and that's something that I talk about with my clients too, is if Jesus is taking time to rest, then you can also take time to rest and take time for yourself. Okay. Ooh, hang on. All right, so this is what we're going to do today. And I want to make sure we have time to do it and leave time for questions. So I know Eric said that in the email that went out yesterday, he asked if you guys wanted to bring paper or pens, whatever it was. Typically when after I've challenged the beliefs and we're starting to work on self-care stuff and we're starting to work on our resources and therapy, is I like to do what my client likes to do. So if I have a client that's really into art, then we have canvases in our counseling center that has this already printed on it, on the actual canvases, and we'll actually paint and create our wheel of resources. So we'll do it in different ways. With little kids, we do like crayons and markers and stickers. What are our resources? With adults, I still I have a lot of adults that like to paint as well. And so we'll also pull out the paints and we'll use the canvases and we'll paint. So I know we don't have canvases and paints and all that stuff, but if you want to pull out a paper, and I know it's not going to be perfect, I'm also going to try, let me see if it lets me. Hang on, I'm going to try to put the actual tool in the chat so y'all have it too. Let's see if it lets me attach it. Oh, no, it won't let me see if I can attach it. Let's see. Let's see. I think maybe it won't let me. Okay, well, I'll send this out to everybody so that y'all kind of have this tool. But if you want to go ahead and get your paper and draw a circle, it's not to be perfect. And then you just want to make sure that you have 8 pie pieces with the circle. So you want to just make sure you draw a circle, you have 8 pie pieces. You can also, if you don't want to do the circle, you can just write down the different ones that we're going to go through, because we're going to assess our own self-care, our own resources that we're utilizing right now, and maybe some that we need to add for each section. And I'm going to walk us through each one. So if y'all will tell me in the chat when y'all are ready, and I'll start walking through each one of the different parts of the wheel. We're getting a couple readies. I will also say sometimes I have clients who are really into art and they don't like this whole circle thing. And so they'll kind of create their own resource wheel. Like they'll change the shapes, they'll do different things. It's actually turned out to be pretty cool in therapy, some of the things they come up with. Okay, we're getting lots of readies. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through each one of the pie pieces, right? Each one of the wheel of resources. And Satir believes these are all of our 8 internal resources that we all have access to. I also like to say in the Bible, it talks about each one of these things as well, and how we can tap into these resources that we have. So let's start with intellectual. So this is something that you're currently doing right now that stimulates your brain, something that makes you think. So what are the things right now, your resources that you're doing that make you think, that actually stimulates your brain? Things that you're doing right now. You can go ahead and write that down. If you have the circle, you can write it in the circle. If you just have intellectual, you need to write down some things. That can be like reading a good book. I'm a huge reader, so I like to read a lot. That can be listening to a podcast, taking a class, sitting in here today, right? That would count as stimulating the brain. If there's a certain type of therapy practice you're learning right now, that's also stimulating the brain. So what are you doing right now that stimulates the brain in the intellectual category or resource? Ooh, Holly, learning a new language. That's awesome. Reading. Yeah, I read a lot. Clayton, research, writing, study. Absolutely. I can relate to that. That was my whole PhD program. Taking LCD classes. Yeah. Bible studies. Yeah. All those count. Word searches, learning to play the piano. There's a lot of things. Audiobooks. Yes. Learning a new job, reading, artwork. Podcasts are my jam. Yeah. Especially the true crime podcasts. I listen to those all the time. Absolutely. All right. So we got intellectual. Let's move to contextual. So contextual is your surroundings. So what are the places that you find yourself feeling energized in? The places where you feel yourself feeling comfortable and safe and recharged. That can be your work environment. Maybe you enjoy going to work and you have really great colleagues. So that can be that. If there's a certain place in the Houston area that recharges you, that can even be going to your favorite shopping places, right? So contextual is your surroundings, your environment. It can be your house. You know, maybe there's a certain room in your house that you like to sit down and read or do things with the intellectual resource. Fishing counts, going to the lake, going to the beach. All of those things count. So where are the places, those resources for contextual that you find yourself feeling recharged? Church, absolutely. I know for me, I live in the downtown Houston area, and on the top of our parking garage, you can see like all of downtown Houston. And I love to take one of my books up there and just like go up there and sit. It's a place that I really like to go on the weekends and just recharge. Okay, redesigning your office, your back patio, church, absolutely, church choir. Yeah, so those places where you find yourself feeling good about life, feeling recharged. Okay, let's do the next one, which is interactional. So socializing with other people. So what are the things that you're doing right now? That's one of your resources where you're socializing with other people. Not just work, not just seeing clients. We won't count seeing clients as part of our social interactional piece. But what are the things you're doing that's actually fun, you get energy from, you feel recharged? Maybe it's going to dinner with friends, going to the movies, coffee with closest friends, absolutely. So what are the things that you're doing? Sleep. I don't know if we would count sleep, Melanie, as a interactional. You might be able to count it in another category, but maybe not sleep. Church and the gym, being with your children, grandchildren, absolutely. I interact with my dreams. Okay. I don't know. That one still feels like a stretch, Melanie, even if you're interacting with your dreams. Live music and gym, a dance class. Yeah, all those things count as interactional. Gym. Yeah, we can count that. We can go with the gym. Volunteer work. Yeah, so what are the things that you're doing right now that are interactional? Okay, the next one is physical. And I wish I had mine. I was going to bring my wheel of resources to show y'all because my physical, I actually painted really dark and don't really have a lot of things in it. So challenging yourself physically. What are the things where you're getting your heart rate up, you're challenging your body physically, those resources? This is the one that I noticed that I didn't have a lot. Physical can also be making sure you're getting your regular checkups with your doctor. If you're noticing your body starting to fail you, you actually take the time to go to the doctor and get things checked out. So it's not even just like exercise, but actually taking care of parts of our body that need to be checked out. Walking dog, martial arts, mowing, running, learning to skate, regular checkups. Yeah, count that in there. Running, sleeping enough would fit here. You can put sleeping here, Melanie. Dental cleanings. Yeah, I hate going to the dentist. So keeping up with dental cleanings definitely counts. Doing 10,000 steps a day, for sure. All right, the next one is, oh, I'm sorry, guys, I haven't even been going through the different things. I'm skipping through. Okay, the next one is sensual. So this is, what are the resources that I'm doing in my life that tap into all of my senses? So sight, hearing, taste, touch, and smell, right? That can be burning my favorite candle when I come home, cooking one of my favorite meals, going to one of my favorite restaurants, listening to my favorite music. So what are the things that you're currently doing right now that tap into your senses? I know, like for me, for touch, there's a certain type of blanket, a Minky Couture blanket that I have to have. It's like my comfort. When I'm reading my book, I have to have like my Minky Couture blanket for touch. So what are the things? Eating lunch, using essential oils, drinking hot tea, massages, absolutely. Soft blanket that helps me sleep. Petting my doodle's fur. Yeah, so all the things that are actually utilizing all of these senses. Candles, right? All the fall candles are coming out. Maybe it's one of those things. Yeah, so write down all the things you're currently doing. Candles, ice cream, nails done, and weighted blanket. Love it. Okay, the next one is emotional. So this is something which stimulates your emotions. This is the one that sometimes clients have difficulty with, is what am I doing right now that stimulates your emotions? And they always think this means we're talking about, you know, sadness or grief, like kind of the harder emotions, but we're also talking about happiness. So what are you doing right now that stimulates you kind of having a range of emotions? And that can be, is there a certain movie that makes you laugh, a certain TV show that brings laughter? Is there a certain movie that you watch that lets you cry? Is there certain music that you listen to based on your feelings, but that we're actually allowing ourselves to have a range of emotions and we're not finding ourselves kind of stuffing our emotions. So what are we doing right now? Resources that tap into our emotions and allow us to process a range of emotions. Ooh, watching Lilo and Stitch last night. Great movie. Talking to your partner. Yeah. Praying. Church worship. Absolutely. Physical movement. Yeah, you can see overlap between some of these resources as well. Okay. So having a bummer jams playlist to cry in the car. I like that, actually. And then funny podcasts for sure. Sitcoms and Disney movies. Yeah, so what are the things that allow you to actually process your emotions? Okay, the next one is nutritional. So eating food that stimulates your body. So what are the things that you're doing currently right now, like food wise, that's actually nutritional? It's taking care of your body, it stimulates your body. I know one thing for me that I gave up when I moved back to Texas is I gave up soda because I was drinking so much soda when I was in academia and teaching all the time and doing research and writing grants. So I gave up soda when I moved back down to Texas, which has been hard. It's been really difficult giving that up, but then I've gotten into coffee. So what are the things that you're doing right now that would fall on this nutritional resource? Okay, juicing, low carb, gave up sugar and most grains, more veggies, drinking lots of water, cooking from scratch. Ooh. Drinking water, no sugar. Almost no sugar, meal prep, cooking healthy meals, more fruit when having a sweet tooth. No gluten, partly out of necessity. Can relate to that one. Can't have any gluten. All right, we're gonna move to our last one, which is spiritual. Right, so what you're doing right now that nourishes your spiritual life, that nourishes your soul, whether that's praying, whether that's going to church, whether that's being a part of a Bible study. Is there somebody that at your church that you pray with throughout the week? Is it certain music you're listening to? So what is it that nourishes your soul when we think about spiritual? Is it reading scripture, those type of things? What do you do? What are the resources that help you? Journaling, praying and devotionals, checking in on others. K-Love, mobile Bible verse app, listening to gospel music, daily devotionals, being the youth director and working with teenagers, inspirational Instagram pages, volunteering, AA. Now, these are all great, all things that you're doing that tap into the spiritual resource. Okay, so now that we've kind of filled out the wheel of resources, I want you to go back. And I know if you put it in the chat, it might be a little hard, but as you were kind of filling out your wheel of resource, what do you notice about yourself? Are there certain resources that maybe we're not utilizing, that maybe we need to add more things to? Because what Satir, the purpose of all the different 8 resources is that we need all of them. We need to be utilizing and tapping into all of them and to have lots of different resources to try when life gets hard or when we're finding ourselves feeling burnt out or feeling not okay. Which ones should we be tapping into? So what are some things that you notice about yourself when filling out your resource wheel? Okay, we have I need to do more. Physical and nutritional were lacking. Yeah, I wish I could show you all the one that I created, the one I painted, because my physical one was really lacking. Limited resources, need more variety of contextual environments. I like to be alone for the most part. Okay, for you sharing that, it may be okay to let a chore wait. I need to pay more attention to my spiritual and sensual resources. Need more comedy / humor. Love it. Yeah. I always start to question myself, when was the last time I've laughed? Okay, Fred, I'm surprised I'm still alive. I had nil in 4 areas. Okay, retired and need more intellectual resources. Need more in all 8 areas. Yeah, these are all really great things that you're noticing about your wheel. And I think the big question comes down to it. So if you took the time to sit down and really fill out your wheel of resources, would you utilize it? Or do you need to go back and start thinking about, what do I think and what do I feel when it comes to my self-care or taking care of myself? Am I going to actually utilize these resources, or am I going to keep playing into the game of, I don't have time to take care of myself, or listening to those internal messages that we tell ourselves that if I take time for myself, then the to-do list is going to be even more stressful when I show up at work on Monday. So we have to, it all comes back down to, like what I was saying, when it came to the research with like the first responders going to like crises or tragedies that have happened, is that they weren't utilizing it because they hadn't worked on challenging those core beliefs or those internal messages about self-care and taking care of themselves. We have to do that first before we can really start to utilize the wheel of resources. And Satir, one of the things I love about Satir is her model is not based on needing to have insight first for change. Her model is based on, we need to have experiences that lead to insight. So one of the things that I do with my clients as we start to create the wheel of resources, and we've been working on challenging experiences they've had or beliefs, is we work on, how do we start to have a different experience that leads to insight? So I know, like, one of the things that I've noticed about myself since leaving academia and leaving a high pressure situation and doing more clinical stuff, where I'm not having to do a lot of research or writing grants, and I was pulling like 60 to 70 hour weeks in academia, is that now that I actually have taken time for myself, the way I'm able to do therapy and the change I'm seeing in my clients is 10 times better than it has ever been these past 2 years that the therapy I was doing in Chicago. I've seen a huge difference when I take care of myself, how I'm even able to apply myself in therapy and work with my clients. And I'm also seeing a huge difference and changes in my clients because I am taking care of myself and I am making sure there's time for me. And I'm not perfect at it. There's definitely weeks where I really struggle to take care of myself, to find the time to take care of myself, but I write those experiences that start to challenge those beliefs is what Satir says we need. We need to have more experiences where we are engaging and taking care of ourselves, and then we start to see the benefits that come from taking care of ourselves is how we really start to challenge those. The other thing that Satir says is through relationships. So do we have relationships with people who take care of themselves? Do we have relationships with people who challenge us to take care of ourselves, hold us accountable to taking care of ourselves? I had a really awesome PhD advisor where one of my really good friends passed away during my PhD program. And I showed up to school like the day I got the phone call. And he told me, you're not allowed to be back on campus for the next 3 days. You need to leave. You need to go take care of yourself. Go do what you need to do. And I knew that if I showed up to school, I was going to be in really, really, really big trouble with him. And so having people in your life that hold you accountable, that say, don't show up, don't come into work, take care of yourself, and I'll see you next week. Like, do you have those people who can start to also challenge those beliefs you have about self-care, the way you view it? So having people that speak up in your lives is also a big part of it. How do we start to create new experiences as kind of the foundation of Satir's model to start to build our self-worth, our self-esteem, and taking care of ourselves? So I want to make sure I left time for questions. We have about 15 minutes. So what questions do you have with this intervention, with taking care of yourself? I know it's really difficult when we're all mental health professionals and we're all in ministry and all those type of things. It's not an easy thing to do.
Lindsey, we did have one question in the Q&A box.
Okay.
Guilt and resentment affects self-care. In what ways can you motivate yourself to shower when being trauma, sexual abuse victim?
So so it said the first part was guilt and resentment.
Yeah.
guilt, resentment, then how can you get someone who's been sexually abused to shower?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say we need to have a conversation, kind of going back to those first questions I was asking, is how do we feel about ourselves? How do we view taking care of ourselves, and really start to challenge that first before we just jump into, well, you need to be taking a shower every day. Kind of getting more to what's happening underneath, more at that process level than the content level. Like what's really going on behind not taking a shower? Is it triggering? Do I not see myself worthy enough to take the shower? Starting to challenge more what's underneath that. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. Any more questions? Someone asked if you're able to share this assessment.
Yes, I'm gonna send it to Eric, and then I guess Eric, you'll send it out.
Yeah, we could post it on the website.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, I'll send it with you with the template that I use and everything. So I'll send it out.
And while we're waiting, if anybody else has any questions, you're going to get a link at the end to do your evaluation and print off your certificate. Let me know if you have any problems with that, and we'll be glad to email that to you. And you'll also get a follow-up email tomorrow with the same link. Awesome. Let's see. Blanca said, I see a lot of glorifying of stress from a lot of people, and really badly in mental health professions.
Yes, absolutely, Wonka. I agree. I feel like in my PhD program, it was almost like a joke of how busy we were constantly and like not taking time for ourselves. We didn't take it as seriously as we should have many, many times. And I think it's something we do a lot where we glorify it, or we joke it off, or we play it off that we're super busy and not taking care of ourselves.
Oh, here's another good one. Diana said, how do you confront, in quotes, professional victims?
Diana, can you say more about professional victims? What do you mean by that?
Let's see. Oh, woe is me. That's what she said. I just can't.
Me, I can't take care of myself.
Yeah.
I think so. I supervise master students at Texas Tech when I was there getting my PhD, and this is one I heard all the time is I can't take care of myself. I don't have time. And it had to be literally me telling them, you are not seeing clients today. Like you are not well enough. You're not taking care of your mental health. I can see it in the therapy room. And so I had to tell them, you're off today. I kind of had to step in and intervene a few times for them to learn that you have to be taking care of yourself in order to take care of your clients. So a lot of times even I haven't had to do it as clinical director. I've only been here for 4 months, but when I'm a supervisor and I'm seeing burnout and I'm seeing my therapist struggle to meet the demands of clients, is I have to set like, if you're not going to do it, I'm going to have to help you do it. And let's figure out why you take this time off. How is this going to be quality time off? Not just watching Netflix, but like, how are we taking care of ourselves in this time off?
Yeah, and she said, in referring to clients that learned helplessness, and I'm sure sometimes they're kind of, just using that to self-sabotage, I guess, right?
Absolutely. I don't know if that answers your question, Diana. I'm hoping I'm answering it.
Jessica says, I sometimes see those who use self-care to dodge responsibilities, like to distract themselves from what they really need to do. Yes,
that's a great one, Jessica. Absolutely. And how do we figure out the balance of, is this self-care, or am I feeling anxious about the responsibilities I have, which then is making it worse? How do we find that balance, and how do we help people find that balance, which is different for every single person?
Yeah, and Holly made a comment. I find that providing information is helpful, like sharing what actually is happening in the brain. And I love that, the neurobiology of self-care and exercise.
Absolutely. Especially, Holly, when you think about how closely mental health and physical health are tied together and how it impacts all of that. It all goes round and around and around.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody on the webinar went to the AACC conference last week, but I went to a great breakout. Dr. Koenig was showing studies on how spirituality and kind of going right along with the self-care actually does heal the brain. And they have scans showing how, people with depression and even addiction, when they start doing self-care and using spirituality in the process, actually helps heal the brain. So that's fascinating.
It is. It's amazing how powerful it is.
If you want more information, Google Dr. Harold Koenig at Duke University.
Mhm.
Let's see. Yeah, so Blanca said, I find it's easier to share information with clients because they've asked her to help, but it's harder to address with colleagues or friends. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, for
For
sure.
ourselves, right?
Yeah, especially because we're all therapists and we all think we know what's best and we're gonna be okay at the end of the day, but we're really not okay.
Yeah.
Sure, for sure.
Okay, great comments. Thanks everybody for joining. Let's see here. We are going to have another one next month. This is a good topic too. Wow. It's going to be by Layla Anderson. Wait, hold on just a second, because you got to hear the title of this. This is going to be a great presentation. 1 second, I'm pulling it up here. I'll post the link on how to register in just a second. But the next one is going to be holy hell. Pardon my French. Recognizing, honoring, and treating spiritual trauma. Yeah, that's going to be a really good one. Leela's at the AVA Recovery. She's a clinical director there. So she's going to be doing the presentation on October 18th at noon. So mark your calendars and I will put that in the chat box if you'd like to register for that.
Yeah, I just want to also say thank you all for participating. This was fantastic. I love being able to, I didn't get to see y'all's faces, but being able to see y'all in the chat and everything you're saying, and just recognize you're not alone. I'm in the same boat as everybody here, trying to figure out how to take care of myself while being in a profession that's very demanding and having to take care of clients. And I put my email in the chat, but I'll also, well, I'm sure Eric can send it out too, but I'll also send out the other stuff too.
Yes, well, great. Well, once again, next Friday, we're going to have our membership information Zoom meeting. If you'd like to find out a little bit more about how to join as a professional member or even as a corporate member, we do have those available. And that's what helps us provide the funding for our technology, our website, our Zoom, and also seed conferences. And we are really excited about having good conferences next year in Houston, Waco, Austin, and other areas around Texas. So we could go ahead and conclude. Do you have anything else to add, Lindsay?
I don't think so. Just thank you all for being here today, and thank you all for what you do in this profession. We need you all. Yes. Good presentation today. Very, very good topic. And we will see you next month on our Spiritual Care Network webinar. All right. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.